Fans.
Hi, Facebook.
Casey Pratt, Larry Beil. We're talking A's new stadium proposal today. It is quite complex.
Yes.
It involves two sites. We'll touch on a number of different topics here, and you can fire away your questions for us, and we'll try to do the best to answer them. But let's first, from the perspective of an A's fan, we're talking about a new ballpark scheduled for 2023 at Howard Terminal in Oakland. So I think everybody's in love with a waterfront park, the concept there. This is something that you have been dreaming about as a lifelong A's fan for a long, long time. So why do you like this site?
I love the site. I've been tweeting about the site and Facebooking about the site and rambling on and on and on and on and on about the site to you in the sports department right over there.
I go like this when he starts.
Yes, he knows I love Howard Terminal. I like it because it's a beautiful waterfront site. It's right next to Jack London Square, which if you've ever spent any time down there, it is already a fantastic area. It really needs more traffic. I think it's very underappreciated. And I think with a stadium there, it's going to revitalize the city from the waterfront. It connects it to downtown. You go right down Broadway, you hit Jack London Square. It just brings everything together for Oakland in such a way that I don't think it can do at the Coliseum site. You're surrounded by freeways and train tracks and all these things at the Coliseum site that I just don't think it has that attractive appeal that Howard Terminal can have.
So the A's held a news conference today, and the exciting thing, if you really expect this to get done, is that we had city officials there, Joint Powers Authority officials there, and they're the ones that kind of oversee the current Coliseum complex. They have to be involved. The people that oversee the waterfront have to be involved. There's a lot of moving parts to this scenario, but to see finally everybody in one room saying, this is our direction, is very different from what we've seen in the past.
Yes, because before that was kind of like the direction of just the city couldn't agree with the county, and the county couldn't agree with the team, and then there's just everyone's going in different directions.
Yeah.
So what ended up happening is Libby Schaaf made it a point during the press conference, Libby Schaaf, the mayor of Oakland, to say, look, we're all up here, we're all sitting here together, we're all doing this now. We're in the same direction.
Which is great,
Huge
except
news.
we have no financial details. Agreements have not been worked out amongst all these parties. And oh, by the way, the Howard Terminal Stadium is contingent upon the demolition of the current baseball stadium the A's play in, the ageless Coliseum, which they've wanted to replace for years. So they're going to level that, but part of this project involves the A's and other entities developing retail there, housing there, all sorts of shops, businesses, as well as, well, you like the fact that they would keep the original stadium, the park area.
Yeah, really that was kind of the underrated thing for me when I looked at the renderings for the first time, including what they're going to do at the Coliseum site. I kind of got like this warm fuzzy feeling when looking at where they're going to have the original playing surface of the Coliseum there. You can go there and play catch with your kids. You can go there with your friends. It's going to be an amphitheater. There'll be concerts there. It'll be right next to Oracle Arena as it already is. And I just thought it was so cool that they're integrating it in that way and really preserving the legacy of what the team had built there, all the 4 World Series, etc. So I think that's a really neat aspect of this design, but they don't have that land. And they don't have the Howard Terminal land, and they're going to need all of it, or this isn't going to happen. So while they have an exclusive negotiating agreement, they got to come to an agreement, and that tends to be a problem when you have the city and county, even when they're on the same page. So that's my number one fear right now, outside of the environmental reports.
I was going to get to that, and I should mention this would be a privately financed stadium by the A's. And so we don't know what the dollar amounts would be, but you have to guess. At minimum, we're talking hundreds of millions of dollars. And when you put the second site in and the demolition and the refurbishing and all that, we got to be talking over $1 billion. That would just be a ballpark number.
I'm guessing it's going to start
with
a B.
Okay, it will be a B. It's
not an M.
It's not an M.
We'll see, though. We don't know.
And so Casey's talking about the environmental impact statement. In years past, Lou Wolf, who was the guy who was running the A's for about a decade, he had told me numerous times, Howard Terminal, no go, cannot do Howard Terminal because there's maybe toxic substances underneath the ground there, the cleanup, the preservation, all that. He said it was cost prohibitive. So for him, even though Mayor Libby Schaaf, they had some sparring, and Gene Kwan before that as the mayor of Oakland, Libby wanted Howard Terminal, but the previous A's leadership was dead set against it. So that's part of the reason that we're here. But let's talk about some other things that happened with the A's, because they had, early on after Lou took over, an Oakland proposal. We said, yay!
Here
And
it is.
that fell apart.
Immediately, almost.
Then Fremont.
Yeah.
Yay! Not going to happen. They didn't want it. Then San Jose. Yay! And then
Lawsuits.
the Giants blocked that. And then there was a kind of a secondary San Jose push. We can fight this and win. And then, no. And now, so then there was Laney College, the Peralta site. And that was less than a year ago. And that was, here's what we're going to do. And that didn't happen either. And so here we are again. And so I asked you this on the news at 4.
Yes, it was a controversial answer I gave you.
Very controversial. So I said, as a lifelong A's fan, give me your gut feeling, a percentage. I asked you 1 to 10. You gave me percentages, but that's okay.
I wasn't listening.
It's okay. So how optimistic are you that this stadium will be built at Howard Terminal? Play ball 2023.
So my percentage answer I gave, even though he asked me between 1 and 10, because that'd make it a 3.
Yeah.
I gave it a 30% chance. And the reason I gave it that chance is because they've announced this deal. The renderings are beautiful, but we've seen so many renderings. We've seen so many deals fall through. And until I see an environmental impact report, until I see the shovel in the ground, until I see the land actually purchased, owned, acquired, there's just way too many things that I think could go wrong. And for me, as much as I love the Coliseum site aspect of the development plan, I see the Coliseum looming large as a really nice, convenient fallback option. And I really, really hope it never gets to that point. Because if Howard Terminal falls through, after the Peralta Community College site falls through, they got nowhere else to go but Oakland. Coliseum. Again.
Yeah. Are there any questions?
We do have
Love
a
it.
question.
Fire away with the
Jim Davis wants to know, do you think the A's are going to spend a lot of money on free agents?
Yes, I do.
Because
and
of
that's a
this.
thing that you really never get to hear too much coming out of the A's ownership and front office. Our own Mindy Bach actually asked A's GM David Forst that exact question today. His answer was yes. And in true A's fashion, my favorite part about it...
I know what you're going to say. I know exactly what you're going to say.
You do?
He said, I'd love to see if we can, how well we know each other. Because we often do this. We
do
finish each
complete,
other's
yeah.
sentences.
All right.
David Forst said, we hope that this will put us into the middle
Yes,
of the
the
payroll
middle.
in Major League Baseball. Like, he didn't say, we're going to be among the biggest spenders. This park is going to put us right up there with the Yankees and the Giants and the Dodgers. He said, we're going to go from rock bottom to the middle.
What's
Is that
the
what
rock
you...
bottom?
Is that, no, he didn't say rock
That's
bottom. I
exactly
said
what
rock
I'm saying.
bottom.
But when you're at the bottom, there's only
We're gonna
one way to go.
to the middle.
It's a steady progression.
When I heard that, I was just like, oh, come on. This is a classic A's.
It was a classic A's answer, and amidst all the pomp and circumstances of
Yeah.
the new stadium deal and the renderings and the excitement and everybody going in the same direction again, they're like, yeah, we'll probably just go around the middle of the pack. I thought that was really funny, but it was honest, and it was legitimate, and I think with the success they had last year, with the lowest payroll in baseball,
Right.
jumping up to the middle is a huge jump, actually. And they
Yeah.
got to pay for all this stuff, man. Like,
Well, that's
this
the
is going to be
other part of this.
expensive. It's
gonna
privately financed. The A's are paying for all of it. So, paying for possibly $1 billion worth of stadium and infrastructure and fielding a competitive team. I wish I had that kind of money.
Yeah.
Matthew wants to know if there's anything new on the gondolas.
Oh, we love the aerial
I love
gondolas.
The
Yeah,
that's my
the
favorite
gondolas
part of
are
this.
great.
Well, outside the stadium,
Yes.
which I think the stadium's going to be very
I'm
cool.
pumped about the gondolas.
So here's how the gondolas would work. Because you don't have BART access, and that's...
kind of. It's like a mile.
Yeah, okay. So
I've walked it before
Yeah, I was
with
gonna say.
kids and a stroller and my wife going to the Eat Real Festival in Jack London Square. It wasn't bad at all. It
A
was,
mile, though.
Yeah, it was a mile. It was like 12th Street, straight down Broadway, you hit Jack London Square. It's not that bad. It really isn't, but you do have to understand some people aren't, as physically capable of walking a mile. There's other issues that you could have, so that's not for everybody.
Right,
And
right.
here comes the aerial gondola.
So the cool thing for, let's say, because I live in the East Bay, so I could take BART and I think it would drop me off at the
12th Street.
At the 12th
Right
Street,
by the, Warriors
by the
training
Warriors,
facility.
the Marriott Center
Yeah.
that they have there, and jump on the gondola, and the gondola would take us
Straight
over
down
the
Broadway,
city
over the freeway.
to Jack London Square, and then be a block or two from the stadium. Which,
Yeah.
just the gondola. I'd pay for the gondola ride alone.
If you've been to the Oakland Zoo, they have a gondola there, brand new. It is awesome. The
Yeah.
views are incredible. It's a great ride. They're thinking this thing can transport 6,000 people an hour. I don't know how that's possible.
It's gonna be a big
but
gondola.
there are a lot of gondolas in a lot of other cities in the developed world that do that. So maybe it will. I don't know.
that would be a
Yeah.
cool thing. Any other questions?
You kind of touched on it, but someone, Lawrence, is asking about public transportation. Anything else on that to the park?
So I've spent a lot of time down there in Jack London Square. I love it down there. It's an awesome place. It's not super easy to get down to. There's not a lot of parking when you're talking about 35,000 fans potentially going to that area. It's going to be a little tricky. So I think your best option's BART, gondola, foot, bird scooters. We've been talking for like a year about riding scooters. We've never made it happen.
Yeah.
One day we will.
We're gonna get on a scooter.
Uber. There's going to be there's the train station right there. There's a ferry that'll probably go there. So it's going to be a funny situation because 35,000 people, they're going to have all these different options, but it's not really going to be the kind of place that I think you're going to want to drive to and park at.
Probably not.
Yeah.
Probably not.
And that's a trend now in sports.
Yeah. One thing that I think we should mention, and I'm going to talk about it on the news later on. What am I on the news here? Okay, we got like 25
Yeah.
minutes before I gotta go. So, since Dave Cavill took over as the president of the A's, one of the things that he has talked about is construction of a new stadium. But not just like, okay, we're going to build a new stadium and it's a big hunks of concrete, and then in 30 or 40 years everybody goes, this thing is just, okay, we have to knock it down, build a new one, blah, blah, blah. What he wants is an iconic piece of architecture
Yes.
that defines a franchise, a city, a landscape. So we're talking about something like a Fenway Park in Boston, which is just ancient. Wrigley Field in Chicago. These are cherished pieces of real estate that kind of define the whole area, and almost a living museum
Yeah.
of baseball for the A's franchise and for the city of Oakland. So that, let's say, we were go to the game together. You would take your kids, and then they would take their kids,
Yeah.
and so it would be generations of A's fans, and you would see things in the park that came from
Yes.
the Philadelphia A's and the Kansas City A's, and I mean you just have
Statues, museums,
Right.
Hall of Fame type items.
all of these things that
They're
define
embracing all of this.
yeah, and take the whole thing and be ready for not only a few decades of play, but a century of play at the Howard Terminal. And so that's kind of what he's envisioning, not just, okay, we're going to build a place and we'll be there for a few decades and then we'll knock it down and build another one and move somewhere else. He's talking about a lifetime, generations of fans enjoying this one location. And I think, that's kind of why the waterfront area is so much better than just, because they could build a park at the existing Coliseum complex, and that's just like,
Yeah, it's just-
no, yeah, we have BART.
If
we
you're
can get
not
over
going there now, and sadly a lot of people aren't, putting a new stadium there, they just don't
it's
see why you would go there.
another
at the
place
same
that we
time.
don't want to go.
Yeah.
Speaking of waterfront, what
Yes.
about taking the ferry? Chad wanted to point
yeah.
out the ferry
Yeah.
could be an
Yes.
option.
So the ferry will be an option. If you look at the renderings too, a lot of people miss this. I think my boy Carson Dion pointed it out, but there is a huge party barge parked right outside the stadium
Oh.
too, which I think is awesome. I hope they do.
ABC7 party
Yes,
barge.
we'll be on that party barge.
Oh, man. We'll be out
But yeah,
there.
the ferry will be an option. And one thing that we always talk about is we've been out to the Chase Center several times as they build that, and water taxis.
Water taxis.
I want to see
yeah,
more water taxis.
it's fun.
I want to see water taxis taking you from the Embarcadero in San Francisco to the Chase Center. I want to see water taxis taking you from Brooklyn Basin, Oakland areas to this new stadium on Howard Terminal and Jack London Square. I think that is going to be a really cool untapped market when the time comes. So yeah, water taxis.
The tricky part of that is this is on the estuary, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
And so that's a narrow waterway. I don't know how much big traffic you could put in there.
Well, the ferries come right out of Jacqueline.
Okay, but I don't. I mean, if you and
just-
I are on little, I'm thinking of like little boats, like in Italy, where you take the water taxi.
You're thinking like a water gondola, not like an aerial gondola.
Yeah. I love. Anyway, we have a lot of ideas, and that's probably why
We'll
the
email
A's,
them all to Dave
the A's
Cavill.
are not interested in
Yes.
speaking with us. But anyway, are there any other questions?
Who is going to pay for the environmental cleanup? Stephen wants to know. And
The A's are on the hook for
A's,
everything.
yeah.
And so that's my fear, is that seeing as how that area has always been used as a shipping port with tons of ships loading, unloading, and all kinds of other issues potentially there, that they could end up getting a big price tag. That's my fear. I'm not saying it'll happen. I'm just being a skeptic.
But they have to anticipate that there are going to be cleanup costs,
Yes.
and there are going to be significant costs. That has to be factored into the whole. Otherwise, it's a non-starter. If you go, oh, you mean we have to clean this up? No, we can't do it and scrap the whole thing. I'm sure they have a ballpark, and if you've ever been involved in construction, whatever you think it's going to cost,
It's going to cost way more.
it'll cost way more than that.
But they
have to know that,
Yeah.
and they're owned by a billionaire. So it's not like if he wants to spend the money, if John Fisher wants to commit to this, then he can certainly do that. But again, him doing that project is tied to them being able to redevelop the existing Coliseum stadium location, and so they're tied together, and there's a lot of stuff that has to happen between now and then, and a lot of people have to agree on this.
Yeah, and you know what makes it worth every last penny, Larry? Every last penny.
A water gondola?
Yes,
A
that
water
too.
taxi?
Any kind of gondola.
An air gondola.
So the A's wanted to go to San Jose,
Right.
which was like way down the road,
Right.
out of the way. The Giants didn't want to give back the territory. The A's actually gave the Giants the territory to help them out and keep them in a burial ways back.
Yeah.
Giants wouldn't give it back. Now, if the A's build on this waterfront, they're going to be sitting here just thumbing their nose at AT&T Park. That is going to be worth every penny.
I wonder, as the crow flies, what the distance is from Howard Terminal, over
It's going to be
over the water.
very close. It's going to be very close.
I mean,
yeah.
not that close, but
It's a water gondola ride away.
water gun.
Yeah.
How cool would that be? Think about that. Let's say there's the A's are playing early and the Giants are playing late, and you could watch the A's game
Yes.
and then jump in your water taxi and go across the bay and then go to AT&T Park and then catch the Giants game.
That would be awesome.
That's a new.
That would be awesome. And you could, for sure, 100% ferry ride it. You could just go right from the ferry building up the Embarcadero from San Francisco straight over to
I would love to
Jacqueline
do
Square.
that.
That'd be really cool. And, pro tip, you can drink on that ferry. Look at that.
That's probably
So on that note,
Yeah,
this
good
might be a good one.
Yeah.
Might be a good one to end it on.
Yeah.
With the actual gondola, what do we think about a concession stand at the bottom so people can enjoy drinks on the
man.
gondola?
That would just be
Is that going to be a
spectacular.
thing?
I don't know.
You
that
get
you
a lot
want
of
all the
kids,
food and all the other stuff.
You
It's
want
gonna muck up the gondola.
gondola to be clean.
It needs to be safe.
So I don't know. There's
Sacred gondola.
Yes.
yeah. I think
Yes.
save your drinks for the
Short
the
walk.
ferry.
Well, actually, you can't really drink
the
in
water, the party.
Oh, the party
ferry,
barge.
Party
Yes.
barge. I don't even know what it's.
That's where you want to
it's
get all
a
that.
Totally made up thing, but
Yeah.
party barge is, and you can, you'll be inside the stadium. You can have a beverage. You shouldn't need to have the drink in your hands at all times.
No.
That's probably a different conversation.
Nor is that probably legal here.
Yeah.
But now the walk from downtown to Jacqueline Square, or from Jacqueline Square to Howard Terminal, I think it'll really be a bunch of bars and restaurants and really cool places you can
Well, the
stop
whole
before
area,
the game
yeah,
and after the game, and that way you can kind of not have to deal with the ingress and egress, so to speak. Am I using that correctly?
Yeah.
So I think that'll be a huge aspect. That's why I really like the stadium there. It'll develop everything. A lot of that commercial industrial area will become restaurants and fun areas and shops and things that are very good for the city of Oakland.
The only things they're going to remember from this are party barge and gondola. That's it. That's all, I think.
And you can drink on the ferry.
Drink on the ferry. Yeah.
All right.
Done.
I think that's
we're
a good point to end it on.
Yeah. All right. Bye, Facebook.
All right.